What's up? How you doing? Shane Raymer here, That Sober Guy podcast, as if you didn't know, because you already had to click on it to hear the shit. What is happening today? I have a great episode for you. I know that I say that every time. That means every episode's great. But this episode is very special to my heart because, if you don't know, one of my passions is not just podcasting, but it's music. It's playing music. I'm a musician, but it's also the music scene and part of who I am, in a sense. The punk rock scene, the hardcore scene, hip hop, everything. From when I was young, a little kid, I remember seeing the band Heart. That was the first concert I ever went to, and I remember being, I don't know, I couldn't have been more than 5 or 6, and I remember just thinking in my head, like, I'm gonna do that one day. Like, I'm gonna play music one day. So the guest that I'm having on right now is Justin Coote, who's a good friend of mine. We're from the same town here in Vacaville in Northern California, and we haven't seen each other in a long time. But when we talked, it was just like we, had saw each other yesterday, which was pretty damn cool. And the reason this episode is so special to me is because we really talked about not only living a sober lifestyle, but we also talked about the music scene here in Vacaville and how that branched out in the mid to late 90s, and what a really big piece of our lives it was as younger kids growing up, and how it evolved into our lives today. And so we talked a lot about bands like Link 80 and bands like Papa Roach, who are from our hometown here in Vacaville, who we started watching when they just started out. And Justin himself was really one of the pioneers in this town, at least, of starting the first hardcore band. They were called Execution Style here in Vacaville, and that set the tone for this whole new straight edge movement and hardcore scene, which kind of went on to take on a life of its own. I mean, of course, there was always, there was bands before this. Of course, we talked about bands like Minor Threat, these old punk rock bands, Black Flag, bands like that kind of started this whole DIY type of movement, and this whole attitude of kind of fuck the establishment, and we're young kids and we have voices too, and we're also going to show you that we don't need to use drugs and alcohol, and we can still do this hardcore music. And what's your excuse to kind of put a label on us then? What are you going to say? Well, you can't say we're druggies, or we're alcoholics, or we're bad people because we're sober. We're doing this. This is the high we get. This is the fun that we have, and we're able to do it in a sober manner. And so that whole scene right there was just such a big part of Justin's life, definitely, in his decision at such a young age when he was 17 to get sober. And today he's a father, he's a husband. He's also the frontman and singer for the band Alcatraz. They've toured all over the world. They've toured with bands like Earth Crisis, First Blood, Terror, a lot of the Sworn Vengeance. That's another band that just popped in my head too. We talked a little bit about those guys back in the day, and Justin was helping to book these bands. Hoods, Sacto Hoods, of course. I mean, that's another well-known, especially in this area and worldwide. A lot of these bands go over to Europe. They go to Japan, as Justin, you'll hear him talk about a little bit. But what a just a cool interview. Really, really fun. A lot of good things to say, not only just about music, but about living a sober lifestyle and about the straight edge lifestyle, and a lot of other good shit. So I'm excited to share it with you. I hope you enjoy it. If you have any questions, comments, or short stories for the podcast, please email me at sobriety@thatsoberguy.com. And please leave us a rating or a comment on iTunes. It helps rank the show. Today's episode is brought to you by audible.com. Get a free audiobook download and 30-day free trial at audibletrial.com/thatsoberguypodcast. Over 150,000 titles to choose from your iPhone, Android, Kindle, or MP3 player. You get a free book of your choice, you get a free 30-day trial, and you help support That Sober Guy Podcast. So when you do that, much thanks to you, and it is very appreciated. So after the intro, I'm going to play actually a song from Alcatraz, and it's off of their Smile Now, Cry Later album, which I found out later on in the episode was only released in Japan and in Europe. So you can find it on YouTube, and you can also hit up Justin. He did leave his contact info in there if you need more information on how to find any of Alcatraz's music. This song is called Get Fucked. This is Shane Rayburn, and you're listening to That Sober Guy Podcast on Recovery Radio. Living one day at a time for a sober, healthy, happy life. For more information, visit www.thatsoberguy.com. And now, let's start the show.
So get out the way, 'cause we are knocking everything down. Living and learning with no time to play. When time comes, we'll stand our ground. Accepting opinions for what they are. Continuing strong on our road so far. But down upon another mediocrity. We'll just wait and see. A message to the elite. You can all get fucked. You can all get fucked. We will never accept defeat. You can all get fucked. You can all get fucked. To the few who never learn. You can all get fucked. You can all get fucked. One day we'll see you burn. And you can all get fucked. You can all get fucked. ALCATRAC, fuck you. Don't need your approval, I do as I please. 'Cause your fucking opinions are like a disease. Stop asking questions, I will never quit. People like you just don't mean shit.
What's up, everybody? Thank you for listening. We have a great episode for you tonight. My good friend who I haven't spoken with in quite some time, Justin Coote, is with us tonight. Justin is a father, newly found father, husband, also the frontman for the band Alcatraz, and we go back a long time, shared a lot of music together when we were younger, and went to school together, and now, man, we're reconnected in That Sober Guy Podcast. So what's up, Justin? How you doing, man?
Pretty good, man. Good to be talking to you.
Yes. I'm really glad you took the time to come on the show tonight and talk a little bit about the sober lifestyle. Maybe we'll talk a little music. We'll talk a little fatherhood, all that good stuff.
Sounds good.
So let's kind of bring it back for a minute, man. So when did we kind of met? I don't know, what, 15, 16, maybe somewhere around there. I want to say middle school.
What, like age-wise?
Yeah, age-wise. What was it about? We were about 14, 15?
Yeah, at least. I'm thinking seriously 15.
Yeah, I think it had to be. We would sit up in Justin's room and we would drink 40s and we would do freestyle sessions. And
true story.
Yeah, that was just some crazy times, man. And I definitely I credit you for kind of getting me interested and started in the whole punk rock scene too. You introduced me to Link 80. I remember you had the old record and you said, "Yeah, check these guys out. It's Link 80." And I checked them out and like I became a fan, real quick, and I became Nick Trainer was actually just a really big influence for me. So thanks for introducing me to them, man. That was fucking,
no problem.
Yeah.
I like spreading that around, especially in a small town like where we were. Something like that was big.
It was, man, and we kind of started. We got into that punk rock and newfound kind of metal, hip hop, all that. That whole time in the 90s was just such a fun time for going to local shows and going to shows out in the Bay Area and Sacramento. And what were some of the things that got you into that? And like, can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, for sure. So two things, weirdest things ever, but one was the Beastie Boys. So my little brother gave me a Beastie Boys VHS of them playing live, and they covered this punk rock song, something I'd never heard before. And at the very end of the song, Mike D goes, "Yo, that was a cover by a song called Minor Threat called Screaming at a Wall." So I immediately went to all the Vacaville record stores that did not have anything even close to that and realized that I'd have to go all the way to Berkeley or San Francisco to pick up that record, which at that time was only on vinyl. So I went and I picked that up, and that was pretty much my intro, and it was the only thing I had. And then that same year for Christmas, my little brother again went to what was it, the Warehouse Records or whatever, and picked out a random cassette tape out of the rock section. And it ended up being a Black Flag cassette tape.
Oh, no way.
Yeah, so between those two things, that just got me going.
That's crazy.
I was like, man, Motley Crue and all these bands have nothing on these guys. Like, there was so much, like, anger and basically a lot of what I was feeling, something I could relate to. And plus, I'd already started skating, so, two things always kind of go hand in hand for some reason.
Yeah, and I always think back to in that, like you said, Black Flag, like Minor Threat, like that shit was real at the time. That was real, like you said, those feelings of anger, the feelings that we felt growing up, just as kids, as younger boys turning into young men and stuff too. The Motley Crue and all that stuff, I mean, maybe it had its time and place, but it was so like... what's the word? It was
like
so it was so Hollywood too. It was
fake.
just like
it was totally fake, trying to sell me on some image.
Yeah,
and the only image that these dudes, the early punk rock bands had is they were just themselves. They just looked like a bunch of kids skating around, being angry, doing graffiti, and literally just singing about reality, the reality of the situation of like the world. And I was like, that is for me. That's what I'm about,
Yeah, and they were talking about real life issues and real life things going on. And I actually, have you seen any of that the documentary that Sonic Highways with Foo Fighters? Because what's the singer Ian something from Minor Threat? I can't remember his last name.
Ian McKay.
Ian McKay. He was on there, dude, on one of them, and he talked a lot about that, about how they, back in the day. They did everything themselves. Everything was DIY. Like everything was just about the whole cause of, and it was about the music too. It was about the message. It was about the brotherhood and shit. And that there's something about that that's just so fucking cool. It's so real.
It really was. The only thing was being stuck in a town where it didn't exist.
Okay.
I had it on record, but I didn't have it in front of me. I didn't have it as part of my life enough.
So
I guess it's the major inspiration,
How does that transition though into like a band like Papa Roach, who came from our hometown of Vacaville, who then starts out and kind of helps bring, all these things that are going on. They kind of created a scene here in Vacaville, and we started going to those shows and stuff, and
absolutely.
That was like a good foundation, or at least I know it was for myself, to like get introduced to this whole new world of like, of just straight up, like you could get all your animosity, all your anger, all your aggression, and still like have fun doing it at these shows. It was just so cool as a 16-year-old kid.
Oh, definitely. I mean, it made Vacaville a fun place to be for a while there. It was great.
It did.
I mean, we didn't have next to anything there. But I can tell you, I used to play soccer with Jacoby's little brother from Papa Roach, and that's literally how I got into Papa Roach. I can't remember what age, but I was young. And he gave me a flyer because I was listening in my head, like my Walkman, cassette Walkman. He was like, "Oh, you like rock music? My brother's got a band. What do they call it?" It's like Papa Roach. It's like, oh, that's like the worst name I've ever heard. Like Papa Roach? The hell kind of band is that? So I went, and I took my little brother with me too. And man, when they hit the stage, that's back when they used to sound like Primus mixed with like Faith No More.
It was like Potatoes for Christmas.
Like, oh my god. And yeah, it was chaotic, and everybody was jumping around, acting wacky, and having a good time. But a couple of the bands that opened for them were also like local area bands. I think like Spot the Dog was one of them. Greg Hansen, I think was his name, was in that band, and a couple other guys. And I don't know. I guess I never felt so like welcomed in Vacaville, in a place where it seemed like everyone who was there felt the same way I did. Like we were all a bunch of outsiders because we were like the rockers or whatever we were being called in school, Yeah. And here we were, and there was enough of us to like be a group and to like make friends. And before you knew it, I'm skating around with these kids that didn't even go to the same school I went to, just because we happened to like Papa Roach and go to the 3 Oaks Community Center to go see bands and mosh around and skate everywhere. It was great.
Well, and then if you really look at it, I mean, that branched out to growing into the part of the people that we are today, I think, too. I mean, look at you. That branched out for you to Berkeley, to San Francisco. Just it really opened up a lot of doors just by that, having that set foundation at the time as we got older. You know what I mean? And everyone
Absolutely.
wants to feel like they belong to something. I think that's everyone wants to be a part of something, whether it's a rock show or a hip hop show or some sort of group, So that was just, man, what a great time. If there's one time I think if I could like turn the clock back, it'd be at 3 Oaks, just getting crazy in that big room in there.
Those are the best times, dude.
Jalopy taco stand.
Oh yeah, I forgot that demo tape. For real.
Do you really? Are you serious?
I held on to all that stuff. Tribal Disco Noise.
Oh wow.
All
Salmon.
the I used to book there. Salmon.
Yeah. I remember. I told Jacoby this when I talked to him at the church. Is that the first show I saw was them, and Ray Penny took me, and it was them, and it was Absolute, and they were in the Live Music Center. Remember that old little hole in the wall in the little strip mall?
Oh yeah.
I mean, I was just like, what the fuck is going on? Like, what is this right now? And I remember Ray's like, dude, you just gotta loosen up. You gotta kind of just get into it. And here I am, I'm this 15-year-old kid, just like, dude, what the fuck is going on right now? But man, just like, it was so cool. I get excited just talking about it. Oh yeah.
Oh, me too. Same thing. That's why I'm always looking at books, because I still got like VHSs of a bunch of those shows and stuff.
Uh-huh.
For nostalgia, I'll pop it on, and me and my little brother just look at it like, damn, man, we really had some awesome thing going on there.
Yeah.
It didn't last, but while it was going, it was awesome.
It was.
And we took advantage of it, full advantage. I mean, it wasn't long after that I was booking shows there and stuff,
What was life like for you when you were drinking? I know that out of all of us that have all kind of been friends and known each other for a long time, you were one of the ones that got sober at a very young age. And so if you can, real quick, take us back to like, the early days of your drinking habits, and what it was that made you decide finally, you know what, like I don't want to live this lifestyle. I want to live a lifestyle free of alcohol and drugs.
The crazy thing is, it started for me around like 7th grade, to be honest. And I wasn't the only one too. And I don't want to make excuses for some of the things that got me into it, but I can tell you honestly that I was bored. I always felt that there was something more out there, and that Vacaville did not have us from a small town. Like, kind of my mentality of how do we make our own fun? The quickest way was to just get fucked up. Yeah, obviously.
Yeah, yeah.
And so we used to do all sorts of crazy shit. I met up with like more than a few like punk rockers and stuff back then, and literally we would do stupid things like take prescription pills out of your parents' cabinet, mix them all together, and everybody would take 2. No joke.
Oh,
wow. Walking down the street.
It was like a grab bag.
It was so bad. Whatever pills were there, and then sometimes people would have like some crazy reaction where they'd feel real good, and sometimes you just get sick and throw up everywhere. And it didn't matter to us, but we were just trying to escape. What we saw was a poor reality. But looking back, when you're a kid, what do you know about the world anyway? But we thought we were in hell living in that small little town.
Yeah.
So we would do stuff like that, and then the other thing too that I think a lot of people were kind of vocal with me early on about my drinking, how it always seemed like it was never a social thing. It was more of like a Justin gets blacked out and passes out kind of thing.
Yeah, just to get fucked up.
Yeah, literally. Like around, at least by 8th grade, that was me, man. I'd walk in with like Mad Dog or a Southern Comfort bottle, and people would ask for glasses of it, and I'd say, no, this is my bottle. Like, I'm going to drink this one.
I am not sharing.
Yours. Yeah, exactly. This is not for any of you.
Yeah.
Literally, this party is more about me just like falling asleep in a corner somewhere than it is about being friends with you in any way whatsoever. So it was crazy. Yeah, I'd steal liquor from my mom's medicine cabinet and mix it with orange juice, or fill up one of those water bottles with vodka. That was my biggest one, because at school you could do that and you could get away with it.
Yeah,
well,
yeah. Oh yeah, I remember.
Or at least you saw you could, until certain kids would get busted. You're like, oh shit, they're on to us. Yeah. it was a pretty wild time. I can tell you too, like when I got into like the hardcore scene and stuff and started meeting kids that were like straight edge and sober and stuff like that, I was still drinking pretty heavily. And even though I had that group, you know, that would definitely support me easily if I would have stopped drinking, I used to write in people's yearbooks. I remember the end of that, towards the end of that freshman year, I was writing, "The day I go straight edge is the day I die," in people's yearbooks.
Really?
Yeah, I've had a couple of friends from Wood that I've ran into tell me to remind me about that, which was really crazy. I mean, I was that, I guess, dedicated to just being wasted constantly.
Yeah, you know? Dude, that's crazy. That's probably crazy if you saw one of those too. But you know, nowadays, if you saw one, like, holy shit. Well, because you get so entrenched in it, you know, you get so Definitely. It's so like rooted in this like this lifestyle. And like I was telling you, you know, before we started the show, it just progresses at such a rapid rate for some people that before you know it, you're in a deep, dark place that you never thought you could ever even imagine being in.
Absolutely.
So what kind of did it for you? What was the final straw for you that you were just like, you know, I'm not going to do this anymore?
Well, it was, I want to say the beginning of sophomore year. One of my friends, who was like one of like the rocker kids, whatever, he actually died. I don't remember, his name was Sam, and dude, it's terrible that I can't remember his last name right now, but it was so long ago. But he used to give us rides everywhere, and he had a truck, and he died drinking. I think he drank like a bunch of booze and fell asleep in a bathtub.
Really?
And, yeah, and they never decided. He went to Wilsey Wood too back then, and they never decided if he had killed himself or if it was an accident. But you know, later in life, I realized drinking like that, you're definitely trying to kill yourself either way.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
So, and that hit us. I think it hit the whole group really hard, but especially me as far as like, where was I going? Like, was I the next teenage kid, you know, to be at a funeral before I even graduated, before I even know, like, you know, I haven't even had sex yet, for God's sake. Like, what about, you know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah.
What did I know about life, dude? You know,
yeah.
What was I trying to escape from? It was a big part of it. There was that, and then, like I said before, like, getting into punk rock and hardcore like I did, there was so many people with so many positive messages, and I was hearing way more and more about, like, you know, the straight edge movement and making friends with people that were straight edge. Even though I drank, they weren't judgmental of me, and I always thought that was a big deal. And so I'm telling you right now, like, the weirdest thing happened. I was planning a night that was going to be like my, you know, Justin gets like sober night or whatever. And I think it was a big party in the backyard, like I always had with my parents and stuff.
Oh yeah, I remember.
And I had gone to get a bunch of booze, and I put it all in my backpack. I was skating across town. I had like at least 8 bottles of like Mad Dog and probably a couple 40s in the backpack, so I was weighing a shit ton. I'm skating across town, and at this intersection, this cop pulls a U really fast and comes over like he's going to come talk to me, and so I'm flipping out because you know what the Vacaville Police Department can be like at times. And I fall off my board, straight onto my back, so glass shards are in me, and I'm covered in booze, just dripping wet.
Holy
The cop
shit.
drives right past me, doesn't even stop to talk to me, and I limp all the way home, bloody and gross, covered in like dirt and alcohol. And I remember all the kids, like Justin Morris, and all these other kids that I knew were like, dude, what the fuck happened to you? I'm like, a sign. Because I'm telling you,
Yeah.
I'm never touching this shit again. I was like, people dying, this stuff happening to me, like me just kind of feeling out of control, which is weird because I feel like a lot of teenagers at that age already feel out of control. They don't need booze to be thrown in the mix. It's like already a really strange time in your life, you know?
Yeah.
And it all just came to a head, and I was like, that's it. Cold turkey, I'm never touching any of this shit ever again. And at that time, I was smoking weed with my older brother. People was like smoking chewies. Like, you know what chewies are, by the way?
Oh yeah.
So people were smoking chewies like it was no big deal.
Yeah, that was a very popular thing at the time. I mean, it
really was. And you know, when you think back about it now, it's like that's gross. Like, what were we all thinking?
For those who don't know, a chewy is it's a blunt with weed in it, and then you sprinkle some cocaine on top of it, and you smoke it. Not very good for you.
No, definitely not. Especially if you're doing like 2 or 3 of them in a night.
Oh man,
it's all fucked up. It's all bad. So. But I said goodbye that night to it and never looked back. And that was, dear Lord, I'm 35 now, and I was 17 then.
Wow, man. So, holy shit. So you have, what's that? 18. I'm trying to do math in my head. My math sucks.
Me too. I'm like,
it's
forever ago.
Wait, 28. So 30. Yeah, 18 years. That's 18 years of sobriety, man. Congratulations on that, dude. That is. It's fucking insane, dude. It's so crazy though that you literally had an experience of being covered in booze and dirt and mud and then, I think the important thing too is I think we've all known, we all have friends and we all have family who we've either lost to the disease of alcoholism and addiction, or people who are that we care about that are so entrenched in it that it not only affects their lives, but it affects the lives of the people that love them and that care about them. And,
Absolutely.
it sounds to me like that was something, even at the young age of 17, that you were able to kind of connect with and say, you know what, I don't want to go down that same path. And that's a pretty cool thing to do at such a young age,
Yeah, I mean, there was kids too that I would kick it with that I thought were really cool, but then they were so down with all the drug culture stuff that they would drop out of high school, and these guys were not even make it to their junior year. And I'm already thinking to myself, fuck no, Vacaville's, not my future. In my mind, it was the small town, and I was trying to escape that whole thing. And if anything was going to hold me back, it was definitely going to be just getting constantly fucked up and not moving forward, But like we were talking about earlier before, music was such an inspiration, such a huge inspiration to, get out, because traveling to see these other bands play in these other cities was that was my dream. I need to do that. I need to play in front of groups of people. I need to meet these guys. I need to go out and see what's out there. And it's funny because so many musicians at the time, even now, are just constantly getting fucked up. But it just so happened that the scene, that I was in the most, the hardcore scene at that time, it was almost all sober people, which blew my mind because they were insane, So, and then I'll tell you, it's funny, it's you brought up Link 80 as well. Man, when Nick Traynor died, that was a shock to everyone. Everyone. So young and so much energy, and we'd all seen him play a million times. We loved that band, and we didn't know him really personally, but we knew him enough to miss him, and felt like we just lost a loved one when he passed away. And there it is, drugs in your face. Every time it felt like every single person you cared about, whether you knew him really well or not, passing away was alcohol, drugs, all the way down the line. So,
yeah, no,
it all added up.
The Nick thing was crazy, man. I remember, I think I was 15 or 16 when he passed away, and I remember sitting up in my bedroom and just going over the 17 Reasons, the cover they had all the lyrics printed inside, and just sitting there, dude, and just thinking about, just being this kid and what's life all about, and you have all these different things going on in your life when you're young like that, and I remember thinking dude, he died of. He overdosed. I don't remember. Was it heroin or was it?
Yeah, it was heroin.
It was heroin.
It was.
And I just remember thinking, God, man, what a young kid, and he really gave out so much, and there was so much to offer the world, and this drug just took him over and took him. And that's why I think it's so cool, what you were talking about with the hardcore scene and the straight edge scene. You got into it, and that whole thing was, like you said, there was already a lot of sober people involved in that. And what is the straight edge scene about? Go take us back to what it was when you first kind of got into it, and then maybe transition into what it's like now. Because from my understanding, it has changed a little bit over time, just like anything. But what was it like?
Well, back then it was I feel like now it's become much more of a catchphrase, but back then it was seriously something that 9 out of 10 people had never heard of ever, had no clue. You'd say, yeah, I'm straight edge, and they just, drive you crazy asking 1,000,001 questions. But like I said, when I picked up that Minor Threat record forever ago, they had a song called Straight Edge on there, and you read the lyrics, and it's don't smoke, don't drink, my mind is open, at least I can think, and things like that. They had lyrics that were you're just doing this because you think it looks cool. You tell me that the choices I'm making as far as being sober is concerned, make no difference, but at least I'm fucking trying to make a difference. And reading into those, like, even at that age, I was like, well, you know, what are these guys talking about? So back then, you know, pre-internet, obviously, no, you couldn't just Google it up and figure it out.
Yeah.
I looked through the thank you list and found other bands. And through those bands, I read more lyrics. And then I found books. You know, I go to Berkeley and check out different places like, you know, Anarchist Bookstore, like on Lower Haight and stuff like that. And you could find little things and books that people have read, like All Ages is a book about Straightedge that was written forever ago. You start reading about it and kind of getting the history. I've always been big on, like, you know, knowing your roots. Like, don't go waving a flag around until you know exactly what it is you're standing for. And, God, it just seemed like the most positive thing to me, you know, for these punk kids to get together and say, you know, society is looking at us like we are a joke. They're looking at us like we're junkies, and that, you know, the youth of America right now, that we're nothing but spoiled brat, like alcoholic, like drug addicts. Well, the truth of the matter is, like, a lot of us are artists and, you know, writers, and we can be inspired, and we can change the world, and we can do anything. So what if we took away the whole drug aspect of what we do and showed them that, you know, with a sober way of living, that we can be just as productive? And, you know, now what will society say about us if we're not on drugs, but still creating, like, beautiful and amazing things, you know? So, I don't know. It was really, really rad. Getting into it, I met with people like Mike Hood, and my soon-to-be best friend was named Dave Yowie, and he'd already graduated high school, but he was straight, and we met up, actually, funny enough, at a Papa Roach show, because he was wearing, I was wearing an H2O jersey.
Oh, yeah.
At the time, nobody knew what the hell H2O was.
Yeah.
Like, you had to be down, like, you had to be, like, in the scene to know what the hell's going on. So he came up to me, he's like, yo, you down with H2O? I was like, yeah, I love that band. He's like, what about this band? What about this band? And we were naming off hardcore bands left and right, because, like I said before, even the term hardcore, you know, 9 out of 10 people were like, hardcore what? Like, hardcore, it's a style of music. No, hardcore rock, hardcore rap. Like, no, it's just called hardcore. And it takes forever to describe, but, you know, being surrounded by that, I pick up zines, because zines were all over the place, and people don't know what zines are. You know, I think they still exist. The kids write them on a regular. But the one I picked up was about South America, the Straightedge movement in South America, which pretty much blew my mind, because I was seeing all the kids with the X's drawn on their hands, and I just thought that was the coolest symbol ever. And the article that I read, inside of it was describing the history of the X on the hand, and how back in the day, like in New York and Boston, those kind of places, kids would, or the security guards would put X's on their hands to show that they couldn't drink. Well, after a while, punk rock kids started showing up with X's already drawn on their hands, showing that they do not drink.
Oh,
it became a symbol of pride.
Dope, dude. That's sick, dude. I never knew that.
Oh, yeah, it was the coolest thing ever. So literally every show I go to, and, you know, if there's 300 kids there, 280 of them would have X's on their hands, and it felt like the best thing ever. We're stage diving, you know, we're going off with circle pin, dancing around, being crazy, and all 100% sober. And at the same time, at least within the Bay Area, I felt, without looking down on anybody else, you know, because there were still kids there that obviously drank, and, you know, they want to smoke before they go to the shows. But as far as we were concerned, that was our drug. The music was the drug, you know?
Yeah.
The music and the hangout, that's all we needed. We didn't need anything else to spice it up. So at that time, I felt like a really positive movement in my life, obviously, because, you know, the support level, I think, has to be there for a lot of people. There's got to be someone cheering you on to, like, make that kind of change, especially the way a lot of us did it with, like, straight cold turkey. You know, it's like, well, there goes that, and the next day, you were done, and you never looked back, you know? So to have a bunch of kids that, like, every time we went out to do anything, it was you already knew it wasn't to get drugs or anything else. It was, you know, to rock out, have fun, and, you know, be sober, which it's not so nerdy talking about it, but it's true, you know.
No, I totally agree, man, and it is. It's about the music. It's about the scene. It's about the brotherhood. I think too is a good term to use, because, you know, like you said, you have that support group, that group of people, that group of friends that are all doing the same. You know, all kind of doing the same thing and supporting each other in doing the same thing, or not doing the thing that, you know, a lot of the other younger kids are doing. I'm still just juiced on the little. I love learning new things, dude. And that little piece you shared about, the kids, you know, they would draw the X on their hands so they wouldn't to the bouncers to let them know they were underage, and that's how that X evolved. I remember seeing that back in the day, you know, like when we were teenagers still and shit, and being like, oh, straight edge, okay. But it's just cool to know where that kind of evolved from. It wasn't just not some random kid woke up and said, I'm going to draw an X on my hand. There's actually like a story behind it, and that's pretty fucking cool.
Sure. But I think at the same time, it inspired kids to ask about it. You know, people would see X's on your hand and go, what the hell is that all about? And, you know, they're into it, cool. If they weren't, at least you shared the information so they knew they weren't just like, you know, some weird logo that they couldn't understand, but something that actually meant something.
Yeah. So you had mentioned Dave Yohe. I remember Dave. I think I met him with you a couple of times, and I know you guys started Execution Style. Is that right?
That's true.
So was that the first hardcore band you started, or that you were in?
No, I actually started one other one, which is pretty. It was awesome because it involved this one dude, Mark Rollins. I don't know if you remember Mark Rollins.
Oh, dude, I just saw Aaron. I still talk to Aaron, his brother.
Really?
Yeah. But yes, I do remember Mark. That's crazy. I haven't heard him in a long time.
So it was Mark Rollins with my little brother Derek on vocals, and it was me on drums. And we were called Suburban Menace. And we only lasted about 3 shows.
That's fucking tight, though.
Yeah, we played like 2 garage shows and then like 2 songs at another show, and that was it.
See, Mark
came over.
Mark introduced me to the Dead Kennedys. I remember driving around. He had this little shitty ass like Ford Fiesta, and we would drive around, and he was listening to California Uber Alles, and I'm just like, what the fuck is this? Oh, it's the Dead Kennedys. Dead Kennedys. These guys are kind of tight. And you start listening to the lyrics and like the whole cause of it. I'm kind of like that with you. I like to know I like to know the foundation. Where did it come from? How did they evolve? Like, what is their message about, you know? And I mean, Dead Kennedys, like, God, I mean, if that's not a message right there, I don't know what is.
Oh, yeah. That's insanely political.
Yeah, absolutely. So you had the first band with Mark and Derek, and then, so that goes into, you start Execution Style, and that was when, right out of high school, roughly?
Yeah, pretty much, because what happened was we had Matt. Oh, well, who do we have singing? We had someone singing who was not. Oh, I was on drums, and the singer was a better drummer, and I was writing the lyrics anyway, and like the vocal patterns, so we switched.
Got
it was crazy, and I had like the ultimate stage fright, but I was like, no, fuck it, we'll do it. And this will work. And then Matt came in and decided to drum instead, and then we got Dave Yohe was in the mix. He was our guitar player. And he was like, I'm pretty sure he was the first straight-edge kid in Vacaville. I think that could possibly be his claim to fame. And but who else got into that? Then I can't remember who our original bass player was, but then later on, Big Doug came in on second guitar, and you know that was that. We put it together, and we kind of sounded like, I don't know, it was like Biohazard kind of meets Madball, if that makes any sense.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
What's weird, too, is back then, the way I sang, I sounded like a 40-year-old man from, like, Brooklyn. and in the last bands I've been a part of, I sound like a little kid. Seriously, the way I sing, it's crazy, the difference.
Maybe that was
I played tracks for my wife at my old band. She's like, what the hell? You sound like you're 50. Like, yeah, I know. All low and deep.
That was the E-Town Concrete influence from the East Coast. That's crazy. Yeah, dude. I remember watching Execution Style do that 3 Oaks. That was, man, dude, just bringing it back again. Just some fun times. But you guys were good. That was like the cusp of that whole hardcore scene in Vacaville, I think. You know. Oh yes. So, Execution Style, 3 Oaks Community Center. I always remember Ray Penny. Ray Penny was always there too and shit. Yeah. And just another, I could talk about it all day. Good times, that whole scene. I think the other thing I was thinking too is that I think Execution Style at the time, as far as the Vacaville scene goes, that started to branch out, that was kind of like the first hardcore band that was here, really. I mean, did I remember? I could be wrong, but
that's my claim to fame.
Yeah. I mean, you really did, and you kind of set the foundation for a lot of these hardcore bands that came up after And still today, I know there's some around. I'm not really too familiar with the whole scene or what is left of the scene here. It's definitely not the same as it was. But that's pretty cool. I think it's
It was
something.
awesome. Like I remember booking hooks and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And Sworn Vengeance and
Oh, dude, I've been listening to Sworn Vengeance, dude, at the gym and shit. That first album, dude, I just brought it back. I'm just like, oh wow, this shit fucking kicks ass.
It's crazy, right? And I mean,
Yeah.
really bring those bands out to Vacaville and have them play for kids that like had no clue. Just like,
Yeah.
holy shit, this is the most aggressive, craziest thing we've ever heard. And then to see all the kids hardcore dancing and doing the sing-alongs, it's like, this is the craziest thing we've ever seen. Like, what is this? And it's funny how many kids ended up joining up.
Well, I think that's right too. A lot of kids back then were just like, "What is this? I don't know, but I fucking love it." Like, I don't know what the hell it is, but And then obviously you start figuring it out the more you come around. But "Gods of War," "Sworn Vengeance," that's got to be one of the best songs, dude.
For sure.
So are you actively still with Alcatraz, or I know you were playing stand-up bass for a minute when we kind of talked a while back. What new projects are you working on, or what upcoming shows or events or anything do you have?
I mean, that's it for me. Like, as far as learning anything new, I'm still trying to. I hope one day to be really good at stand-up bass. If my daughter will give me a second to get away, and but sometimes you gotta make those decisions. But yeah, Alcatraz is still playing. We just played not that long ago at 924 Gilman, which that's where Lincoln and all the hood bands.
Oh yeah.
From. And then with this band Soul Control, which was awesome, really good fun show. And then hopefully, if everything works out right, we'll be doing maybe a couple shows in South America with Comeback Kid.
Really?
Every night. Yeah.
Oh, that.
Our last tour, like little mini tour we did, was with Earth Crisis actually, and that was South America as well.
I think I saw a flyer for that. I was looking on Facebook, and I think there was a flyer on the Alcatraz site on there.
Yeah, we've been everywhere. You know what's funny too? And you talk about like the old SC South days. Like Big Doug went on to go and be in Terror. Dave Yelly went on to be in Hoods and then Set Your Goals. Like we all
all branched out to different.
Right, we grew out of this little band that we started in high school, and the next thing you know, a bunch of us are touring all over the world and getting into crazy shit and meeting kids everywhere, and it's awesome. It
really is. I mean, because how great is that to just widen your perspective on life? Just set the music and everything aside. Just meeting new people, different cultures, different ways of society, different places, and that all stemmed from this, little town and this little scene. And for a lot of you guys, being sober too, being in your right mind, being able to do what you do and still not only gain the respect of other people, but respect yourselves and respect the things that you're doing, because you're making the right decisions and you're making the next right decisions. And that kind of leads into one thing that I wanted to ask you is what would you say to some of the younger kids out there that might be listening to this, just about the lifestyle of living a sober lifestyle, a healthy lifestyle, a happy lifestyle, and being respected by others and respecting yourself? What's some advice you could give to them?
I mean, really, I've always felt like people use the term I'm true to myself, or I have complete control of my life, and the fact of the matter is once you start taking things to quite literally escape reality or change your perception on reality, you are not yourself.
Mm-hmm.
If you want to be true, and if you want to see life for all its beauty, the power is within you without drugs or alcohol. And it's not that I'm calling people out. I want to be judgmental, but the truth of the matter is the respect you have for the world around you and the things you do every day, it grows greater and greater once you learn to live in the reality that's given to us. There's something about accepting the beauty for what it is and not trying to think about how you can enhance it or how you can escape it, because everything I deal with life and now, the ups and downs of everything, I deal with on my own terms. I don't go to a bottle because I've had a bad day at work. When my heart got broken, in my younger days, it wasn't up to a pill to try to make me get through it. I came through it on my own, and I came through stronger. So I guess my best advice is, like, if you really want to learn how to deal with the ups and downs of life, like, you can really come out on top through a sober way of living and being. And it's not that I think that I'm better than anyone else. It's just that it's just a different perspective, you know, altogether. And I think it's a very positive one. I think it's something that can be passed on to a lot of different people, because some people, yeah, they can handle that way of life. They can literally every once in a while go to a bar, have a couple drinks with friends. It's not a big deal. But I can tell you right now, like, it's not what you see with the majority of the population, especially in the media and whatnot. Like, all you see is, like, spring break type, you know, groups just there to get trashed, to completely get obliterated and just forget about everything they've done. And for them, it's not a social thing. It's not every once in a while. It's their lives. They can't handle life. They're completely trying to escape every chance they get, and it's no longer becomes a fun thing. So my advice would be, like, really know exactly what you're getting into. As well, like, a lot of people like to get into arguments with Straightedge because, for whatever reason, I've been through it my whole life, so, like, I know. Really educate yourself on everything as far as, like, knowing what you're laying a flag against. Like, you know, if you're not going to drink and you're not going to do certain things, know what the cause and effect are of those things, so you can literally have an educated, like, discussion with someone. If they really want to, you know, go back and forth on it, let them know what the damage it'll do scientifically, you know. Let them know everything down the line that might happen to them that draws, you know, directly to their previous actions, like when they were younger, like the effects of booze or whatever else it's going to be, because those things matter, and those things give you a better chance of not really butt heads with people, but to really have a sit-down, educated discussion with them.
Yeah, I would 100% agree with that. You definitely got to educate yourself. You definitely have to know the lifestyle that you want to live, and why, you know, you're going to choose to live that lifestyle. And the educated discussion with people, like you said, you know, because people are going to ask, people question, people don't know, they don't understand. And I think a lot of people want to be sober. I think a lot of people want that lifestyle of being able to deal with their reality, being able to deal with the ups and the downs of life. But a lot of people are scared to. I know I was very scared to make that admission that I'm an alcoholic, that I'm an addict, and that there's more to it than that, though. It's not just that I love to drink. Yeah, I love to drink and get fucked up, but I also love to not deal with reality. I love to leave, you know, these things behind and let my mind go off into some distant, far off place where I don't have to deal with anything, you know? And so in order for us to really come to terms with that, you know, and make that decision of which path we want to go down, I think it really starts with honesty and being honest with ourselves and taking a good look in the mirror and saying, you know, look, this is me. This is who I am today. And who do I want to be tomorrow? Who do I want to be for the rest of my life? Who do I want to be to my kids, to my wife, you know, to my family? And man, just, you really hit it on the head as far as wanting to escape reality by using alcohol and drugs, because that's really what it is. People just don't want to deal with the things in life, and it's not easy. I mean, I'm sure you'll attest to that. I think a lot of people also make the mistake of thinking that, oh, well, if that person's sober, their life must be great and all wonderful and dandy, and they think they're better than everyone. Well, I can tell you right now, that is not the fucking case. I have my bad days. I have my good days. I have my things with my wife, with my kids, with my family. I have everything just the same as, you know, her or him or whoever. But the only difference is just like you said, is that I get to choose to make the choice to deal with it in the right state of mind, you know, and on a real state of mind. And that's something that I'm pretty proud to say these days, you know.
I've tried to communicate to people before, like, it's not a negative way to think about things, because what I'm really trying to explain it is that you are strong enough. You're stronger than most people would have you believe.
Yeah.
And you can deal with these things on your own.
Mm-hmm.
Literally. Like, you know, you'd like to think maybe every once in a while you feel like you're weak or whatever, especially when it comes to, like, addiction and whatnot. But the truth is, you can overcome it, and you can be twice as strong as you know, society or the media or anyone who wants to portray you. And that goes for everyone, you know? There's so many kids that say, oh, I wish I could do that. You could do that. There's a song by a band called Bane called Superhero,
Mm-hmm.
and one of the lyrics is the singer sings is there is nothing within me that you cannot do. There's nothing within myself that you do not have. I'm not a superhero, you know, and that's legitimate for everyone that chooses like a sober way of like living. Like there's nothing superhero about it. There's no I wish I could do that. You could do that. You have the power to do that, you know, because you're strong as an individual, and people should give themselves more credit, I guess, you know. You know what else was funny too that I was thinking about is there's so many kids, like, do you remember Clay Basil?
I do, yeah.
Clay swore that all the way up to like 2000 and I don't even know what, that I was drunk. And he always would swear it because he's like, no way, you were like the craziest guy at the parties, and I know you always had a bottle. A lot of people didn't realize I would go to Safeway and get Martinelli's sparkling apple cider, and I would take it to parties every time. And that's because I got tired of people asking me if I wanted a drink or or asking me why I wasn't drinking. So it was either that or I'd get a bottle of Sprite, like a big giant 2-liter Sprite, and I'd walk around with that at parties constantly, and people would just assume that I'd spiked it with something. And he's like, no, dude, you used to be wild. You used to go crazy and dance and do all crazy shit. I'm like, yeah, that was me. That was 100% me. There's no booze involved. I was just party animal having a good time on Sprite or sparkling apple cider, whichever I decided on. So, I don't know. That's always been a fun thing I like to tell people about.
Well, yeah, because in other words, though, you can still go, you know, there's a lot of fun to still be had with being sober. And I know that was one of the things that I was really scared of. Like when I started like considering like maybe I should quit. Maybe I need to quit. It was that thing. Well, everything. And that was partly because everything that I did revolved around drinking. Whether it was a birthday party, whether it was, you know, going out for the night, going to dinner, no matter what it was, you know, it always revolved around drinking. So that thought of, well, what the hell am I going to do? I mean, you really have to reform and reshape the lifestyle that you live. And it's
crazy because it's the majority. It's the majority of society. It's, you know, if you go out to have fun, alcohol is automatically, in most people's minds, is part of the fun that's going to go down.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. And, you know, like you were touching on earlier tonight, and I always feel like I need to say this because it's not that, like, I'm looking down on anybody or judging anybody. There's a lot of people that can responsibly have a few drinks out there. And, you know, I'm not one of them. And there's a lot of people who aren't one of them either, and they can't, you know, because it just, you know, we end up doing stupid things, and it just doesn't work for us. There's something... You know, something wrong. And
I mean, you know as much as anyone else. Like, I go out with the Monster Squad kids and everybody else, drunk ass people on a regular basis, and they'd be partying, and I swear, you know, my goal was either to drive them home safe, make sure they didn't get arrested, or make sure maybe I was that guy that said, hey, man, you've had too much already, man. Put that bottle down. And if I could be a positive, you know, force even in that way, then, you know, I felt good about it. But there was never, ever a time in my life where I was like, fuck you, you drink, I'm not around you, fuck you, you know, you're smoking, I'm not going to hang out with you, because that's just ridiculous, man. You know, life's not about trying to be better than anyone else, but that's why this whole thing, you know, like us talking right now and everything, it's such an individual choice, and, you know, that's why I thought it was I was super excited when you hit me up about talking on here, because, you know, every once in a while someone out there needs to hear it.
Yeah.
Just to know that, you know, it's not an impossible thing, and they're not alone, and the whole idea, and that life is really good on the other side. It really is.
It is, and I'm really glad that you brought that up, because it is important for people to hear, you know, just the conversation that you and I are having, and just some other opinions. Like, it's, you know, it's okay to live a life, you know, clean and sober. Like, it's okay to do it, and it's okay to talk about it too, which is one of the reasons that I started, you know, this show, was one, for my own therapeutic reasons, and to keep my line of communication open, because that's one of my defects, is I tend to shut down and I don't want to talk about things. Well, if I'm doing a show, I'm forced to talk about things, and it's not so much by force, I guess now. I really enjoy to do it. But I also get to bring people I don't know, and my friends on, like yourself, who, you know, have their own opinions and their own views and their own valuable information to share with other people. I mean, if this what we're talking about right now helps one kid out there who might be struggling, and maybe it helps a person who's not struggling themselves, but it helps them understand somebody that they love out there, one of their parents or a brother or a sister or a friend, helps them understand a little bit about what that person might be going through and struggling with. I mean, that's the ultimate goal here. So, I mean, I really appreciate you taking the time out to come on and talk about it with us tonight. Is there anywhere that that you could give to the listeners out there if they'd like to find you, if they'd like to look up any of your shows, any of your music, anything out there where they could get in contact with you?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, the last record was called Smile Now, Cry Later. So if you Google search Alcatraz, Smile Now, Cry Later, or put it into YouTube, I think the whole album comes out is up there. And there's a million free downloads like everywhere. But if you want a physical copy, unfortunately, and this is going to sound weird, but you got to get it from Europe or Japan. I think is the only two places where it came out, which I know sounds batshit crazy, but for a while there, those are the only two places where you're going out to play. So.
That's pretty fucking dope, actually.
It's pretty rare.
You know what I mean? Yeah, that's pretty fucking cool. Like, you can't get it here. You got to go to Japan to get that shit.
Yeah, and Australia, too. It came out in Australia.
Wow.
So all these kids in America being like, how come we can't get the record here? It's like, sorry. We didn't put it out here, but it's available everywhere else in the whole world, literally. So, yeah, it's cool. Rad. But that's the main spot to go, and then what else can I think of? Our hashtag, if we hashtag anything, is Alcatraz HC. So if you want to look up photos of us playing shows or any crazy shit that we're getting into, that's usually the spot. My guitar player Manuel just started a new band called Chains, and they're already they're blowing up already, which is crazy.
What is it? Chains or change?
Chains.
Chains?
Chains like I'm chained to I don't know what.
Got it.
Or something. I don't know, chains.
Got it. I'll have to check that out.
He's another one too. I've known him for forever, and he's also a father, and he's also straight edge, and so is I think half that band. And there's more than a few of us. So I used to think I was the minority, but the older I get, the more I run into more dudes that are getting into late 30s, early 40s, and they got kids, and they're still straight edge, and we're all just plugging along, making music and loving life. So it's pretty rad.
Yeah, that is, man. You just gain perspective as you get older, I think, and you start looking at, especially when you have kids too, you start looking at life in a whole new perspective. And when you're young, you think you're going to live forever. You think that you're invincible, really. And you start getting older and you start realizing that, man, life is precious and life is short. And these little times that I was taking to be partying and away from my daughter, and it's just like I would never get that time back. I would never do that. If I would never be able to get that back if I continued to do that. So it's just it's nice to be able to have that perspective. I also wanted to say too, check out I Lost My Hat, or what is it? Justin, I Lost My Hat. Yeah, Justin told me to look this up shortly before we did the interview tonight, and he basically is at a live show, and there's a pretty big, nice little pit going on, and kids are hardcore dancing and going fucking crazy. And he pretty much stops the show because some kid jumps on his back and loses his his hat in there. And I don't want to ruin it, but it's pretty funny. So check it out.
I mean, I guess for my last 2 cents is any mainstream documentaries done on straight edge, just completely ignore them. They are it's like the worst propaganda bullshit I've ever seen. They'd like to make us out like we're a gang. We are actually on gang. Straight edge kids are on gang file all across the world.
Really?
It's insane. Yeah, it's insane. It's it's bad apples anywhere, man. It's like group of skaters get together. If a bunch of those skaters start beating people up, skaters are a gang. A bunch of taggers get together. If taggers start beating people up, they're a gang. And everybody wants to get labeled for the bad apples that are involved in the group. But I'll tell you what. Hardcore and straight edge is a non-violent movement, and anyone that tells you otherwise is just a bullshit bully, and they got no place in the scene, because punk rock is for everybody, and anyone that says otherwise is a dick, because it's just not the way it is. So, and if you want to look into straight edge and see what it's all about, go back to the source, look up bands like Minor Threat and Teen Idols and Slapshot and some of these other bands, and really read lyrics. And, you know, even with bands like Earth Crisis, they got labeled pretty early on as, like, you know, tough guys, like hardcore Straightedge, militant guys, but it's really not what they're about. And if you read their lyrics, I was actually fortunate to tour with them a couple times, once in Japan, and some of the nicest guys I've ever met. And just, you know, really focusing on the positivity. It's just what they do as far as being Straightedge bands goes, they're really just trying to send a positive message. Whether or not you want to accept it is up to you, but they feel good with themselves to, like, spread the word, just like you're doing with this podcast, you know? So don't be so quick to judge when you see a Straightedge kid and think, oh, that guy's a judgmental dickhead, because it's not the case.
Well, that goes back to just what you were saying earlier. Do your homework, do your research, study a little bit, learn. Knowledge is power. The more you learn, the more valuable your conversation's going to be, your peace of mind's going to be, and your value to yourself is going to be too.
Absolutely.
If you want to get any more information as far as this episode goes, as far as the band Alcatraz goes, if you have any questions, comments for the show, please email me, sobriety@thatsoberguy.com. Justin, thanks again for coming on, dude, and I hope to do it. This has been another episode of That Sober Guy Podcast on Recovery Radio with Shane Ramer. For more information, visit www.thatsoberguy.com, or you can email Shane at sobriety@thatsoberguy.com. Thanks again for listening, and enjoy a sober, healthy, happy life.